So before I officially start off this video, just wanted to update it retroactively. I delayed this video by a few months to coincide with the speculative relative release of this series, and lo and behold, it's not up yet. Now, granted, a lot of anticipated series and movies have not gotten a release date yet. The Phineas and Ferb movie hasn't, but then again, you have stuff like the Three Caballeros series, which has been tossed around Asia for a while, that got an immediate release. So, I have nothing left to think other than that this series itself is going to be shovelware for Disney Plus, and they have no way of really promoting it. Not that they don't have a way, it's just they're not going to. So, with that being said, watch the show any way you can. Talk about it on Twitter, sing about it, try it out, speculate, analyze, just get into the nitty-gritty, because I'm not exactly sure who's in charge of renewing it or canceling it, but the point is that it's had a very strong release in Europe, and we gotta keep the beat living on. So, watch it any way you can, because Disney in the US is dragging their feet, and they cannot hold the fans hostage for this long. With that being said, enjoy the video. Alright? So the advent of Disney Plus has sent a lot of content shuffled around in a frenzy, hasn't it? The acquisition of a majority of Fox has increased the amount of transitioning IPs over to the new platform, but overall there's a lot of content that's being utilized to pad out the colossus of Disney Plus. The headliners for year one are mainly comprised of Marvel series, more reimagined movies of classics from the theatrical canon, and whatever the hell this is. Aside from the fact that its looming presence is contributing to the weakening and inevitable destruction of the streaming model to make it more like the third estate it beat out, there's a lot of potential that goes right out the window when it's set to be dumped on Disney Plus later in the year. The lineup of future animated series proves this. The cartoons set to premiere there are either utilizing some of the best talent on worn-out and well-exercised franchises, or straight up dumping originals or standout talent and robbing them of a television release, which might actually be for the better, but it's bogus regardless. The reason why I bring it up is because one of Disney Television Animation's newest projects falls into both categories, kind of, by taking a well-worn ancient franchise of Disney canon and recycling it into a fantastic new IP. Its spring premiere in Europe has exceedingly established itself as a worthy program to be exhibited proper on the Disney Channel, or at the very least Disney Junior. Hell, it was probably set to air there anyway, but nope, streaming service now, tough luck. This series had no reason to exist, no space to thrive, and as harsh as it may sound, no right being as good as it is. I mean, looking back on this franchise's history, it might be the last thing expected to be solid critically. But I'm here, and suffice to say, I freaking love it, and I desperately need to talk about it. So, yeah, 101 Dalmatian Street. From the outset, it seems like this show was a last-minute deal. A couple of Finnish animators that established their own really cool and successful project pitched this idea to Disney in Europe and impressed them enough to produce it with Canadian studio Atomic Cartoons and British studio Passion Animation. It hits me the same way the 7D did, by utilizing some of the best talent in the land to take this well-respected source material and completely flip it on its head. In a good way. The 101 Dalmatian Street seems to be a direct continuation from the original story. The resident family is at least partially descended from the original power couple, Pongo and Perdita, but it's a blended family made of American and British Dalmatians. The new duo at the center of the cartoon, Dylan and Dolly, are the eldest siblings of the combined familial lines that rule the roost while their parents are out working. The whole family lives in a singular townhouse that, according to external lore, is left to the parental dogs by their eccentric owner that went to live on an island somewhere. The dogs live wholly on their own with the exception of a few crazy gadgets to help them eat and stuff. The series follows the lives of the family members documented and their misadventures living as strong, independent dogs that don't need a human in this action-adventure-leaning slice-of-life series. So going into this series, my interest was certainly there, but I wasn't all over it per se. When I was relatively caught up with it, I left feeling like a top-tier Disney cartoon was on the way. I see potential in this series that I've felt a lot of genuine enthusiasm for. I don't just see a really strong adaptational series, I see a really high quality addition to the Disney TV cartoon canon. It's one of the best DTVA projects I've seen in its 30-year existence. Even in the wake of DuckTales and Gravity Falls, it's still really, really good. It's probably a series y'all sleep on, and I feel like that's a travesty in and of itself, but I ain't really here to chastise you for that. While I'm here, I just really want to gush about it. So, since 101 Dalmatian Street seems to be a direct continuation of the original story, the way the setting is modernized and adapted is an important touch. The creators allegedly ignored any of the spun-off movies or series and just stuck to the original novel and the Disney movie, which was instrumental in how they built up their world. This time, the story is based in Camden Town, as opposed to urban London, and not much changes environmentally speaking. It still seems like a really lively place to rear 99 puppies. The colorful cast of supporting and one-off characters helps to keep the action in motion in and around town. One of the best things this series does is to balance out the large cast. It's clear that the writers have a lot they want to do with the show, but they're not forcing in all their characters integral to one or two plots. Even out of the Dalmatian family, the pups' appearances are pleasantly spaced out. Interestingly enough, out of the 101 existent, there's actually less than 24 that are named and articulated in the story proper. Maybe that'll change in the future, but we know for now that number didn't impede the writing. Consider it a Loud House AU that didn't get stuck on character personalities 4 episodes in. Speaking of now, let's jump into the characters. So I can't promise that each and every character is especially complex and rounded. I didn't know if a modern cartoon with a large interchangeable cast has pulled that off yet that hasn't had more than 5 to 10 years to live. However, I can promise that everyone that you come across is really engaging or likable in their own right. None of them have currently overstayed their welcome, and with their expected returns, they've all had established purpose so far. I like that of whom we've seen, the pups seem to not have cliché or overly familiar ways of executing their personalities. Dylan and Dolly in particular are pretty far on the opposite sides of the spectrum as far as personality and taste is concerned. But that doesn't get in the way of them being grounded and sophisticated characters. They're refreshing takes on familiar archetypes, and it's really needed in stories like these. The pups' personalities, while based on singular traits and archetypes, are given wiggle room to be fleshed out a bit. Some of the supporting and background characters also live independent or interdependent lives. This is still modern-day England, but there's bits of urban fantasy thrown about. The Dalmatians' main antagonist, a stuck-up manipulative corgi named Clarissa, lives with her owner, but their relationship is somewhat reversed as her every whim is catered to, as her owner cowers in the face of man's best friend. There's another house that can house a full pack of cats, and they seem to be at least somewhat autonomous. In general, 101 functions as a satirical comedy within a hybrid animal society where the Goofy and Pluto conundrum is cranked up to 11 and subsequently played around with. There seems to be some statement to be made about classism in this universe, but if you don't see that or don't want to, then you're still left with a fun dog show. Everyone wins. Speaking of which, the story takes on a unique pace that has to be seen to be understood. The episode segments so far are episodic and self-contained, but according to hints left in and out of the series canon, it seems like we might get a glimpse of a more continuous format, and while not really needed, could be a nice addition. The way climaxes of the standalone series are handled well, with great composition and shot layout, so I can see the series holding its own on an artistic level. There's a lot to be said for whatever they're planning to do in the future in terms of narrative, because these hints just pop out at you. No thanks to the vibrant animation. The animation is a personal highlight for me. The design is very aesthetically pleasing, and the animation is very fluid for a TV cartoon. As another attribute deliberately helped by the writer's lack of secondary influence, the character design is stylized but really flexible. It's a digital toon that mimics and pulls off a wild animated look the first Dalmatians cartoon got into. Top-tier 2D toons like these don't come around very often, and again, this comes out most in the last third of each episode when the action really takes precedent. The character expressions are also stretched out to a great extreme, which I really enjoy seeing. The art direction seems to emphasize texture quite a bit in the background design and FX work, which is a nice touch for a show about a rowdy pack of puppies. Truth be told, I didn't find the musical score that remarkable. It definitely fits the vibe of the environments and the mood, but I can't say anything in particular stood out other than the eccentric intro. I liked the casting choices they had as well. Truth be told, I wouldn't expect the snarkiest Ninja Turtle to become this adorkable, Scooby-Doo running, sci-fi loving nervous wreck. And I also wouldn't expect the newest dinosaur on the block to inhabit the soul of this lovable skateboard riding, bow waka wavin gangsta. And Amethyst too. They got actors and actresses from both sides of the pond to portray this wealth of characters and depict the blended Dalmatian family. Despite that, both of the elders from opposite sides of the pond both have the standard American accent. It's an interesting detail that could have meaning. It could mean everything and yet nothing at the same time. That being built upon is one of Dalmatian Street's most intriguing features. Most serialized series of the animated variety are quick to establish a story in one way or another, even if it takes a while for it to take recognizable shape. The writing is pretty well developed, but it takes time to get into the main action. A lot of comedy vacillates between dog puns and slapstick, both of which are well executed when they pop up. 101 can be cute and edgy and switch pretty much seamlessly between the two, which is nice. I like how the complexity of the visuals contributes to the writing as well. Whether it's setting up a satirical premise or just another visual gag, there's a lot of good shot composition to appreciate throughout. And those are my main thoughts on the show. Truth be told, while the series does share similarities with cartoons like The Loud House, where the large expandable cast make for wacky adventures first and foremost, it seems like there's a lot more going for this one in the long term. Again, there's evidence of a larger serialized plot coming in, but the series was shunted off to Disney Plus before it even got the chance to compete with the other serialized series. Take the time to watch it wherever you may, and spread it like the plague, because its numbers in Europe might not be enough to sustain it through its prospective second season. It's a really competitive entry into DTVA canon, and it deserves the world right now, so check it out.
It's on